Chapter 3. The Gathering Storm. However, much of the Rockefeller wealth may be attributed to old John D.'s rapacity and ruthlessness. Its origins are indubitably based in his initial financing from the National City Bank of Cleveland, which was identified in congressional reports as one of the three Rothschild banks in the United States, and by his latter acceptance of the guidance of Jacob Schiff of Kuhn, Loeb and Company, who had been born in the Rothschild house in Frankfurt and was now the principal Rothschild representative, but unknown as such to the public, in the United States. Eustace Mullins, Rockefeller's secondary to Rothschild's. The Journal of History, Fall, 2009. By 1880, the American oil industry was the Standard Oil Company, and Standard Oil was John D. Rockefeller. He owned a third of all the world's oil wells and 90% of the oil refining. The product he produced lit the lamps of China and almost every household within the civilized world. In an 1881 article for Atlantic Monthly, H.D. Lloyd wrote, "Kerosene has become, by its cheapness, the people's light the world over. In the United States, we used 220 million gallons of petroleum last year. It has come into such demand abroad that our exports of it increased from 79,458,888 gallons in 1868 to 417,648,544 in 1879. It goes all over Europe and to the Far East. The Oriental demand for it is increasing faster than any other. China and the East Indies took over 10 million gallons in 1877 and nearly 25 million gallons in 1878. After articles of food, this country has but one export, cotton, more valuable than petroleum. It was worth $61,789,438 in our foreign trade in 1877. $46,574,974 in 1878, and $18,546,642 in the 5 months ending November 30th, 1879. In the United States, in the cities as well as the country, petroleum is the general illuminator. We use more kerosene lamps than Bibles. The oil boom. In 1876, the first internal combustion engine, fed by gasoline, was created by German engineer Nicholas Otto. Several years later, fellow German inventor Gottlieb Daimler strapped gasoline engines onto bicycles, tricycles, and other vehicles. In 1886, Carl Benz, yet another German, patented a three-wheeled automobile with a single engine. In 1893, the Duryea brothers successfully tested their four-wheel motor car on the streets of Springfield, Massachusetts. By 1897, Henry Ford was producing horseless carriages for the general public. The number of automobiles leaped from 800 in 1898 to 8,000 in 1900. Other developments quickly followed. When the Wright brothers took off on an airplane at Kitty Hawk in 1903, their flight was powered by gasoline and brought to the beach by Standard Oil. That same year, the British Navy began to outfit their battleships to use fuel oil rather than coal. The future of the world was set. It would be fueled by oil, and whoever controlled this commodity could set the course of human history. Aware of this fact, the Paris Rothschilds, led by Baron Alphonse de Rothschild, established the Caspian and Black Sea Petroleum Company and built refineries at Baku in the South Caucasus region of Imperial Russia, a land that became the modern-day Azerbaijan. The investment was lucrative, and the Baku refineries were producing more oil than any other country in the world. In 1891, Baron Rothschild teamed up with the M. Samuel and Company, a Far East shipping company headquartered in London, to build the world's first oil tanker, the Murex, which sailed through the Suez Canal in 1892 with a shipment of oil for Thailand. The company that Rothschild created with Samuel became known as the Shell Transport and Trading Company, in honor of Samuel's family-owned Seashell box business. After Dutch drillers struck oil in North Sumatra and set up the Royal Dutch Petroleum Company of the Netherlands, Samuel and Rothschild united with the Dutch to form the Royal Dutch Shell Company. The headquarters of this new firm was established at The Hague, a site that would become of strategic importance in the formation of the New World Order. The Rothschilds were now tied to the Dutch royal family, a development that would result in the creation of the Bilderberg Group. The Society of the Elect. The Bilderbergs would not be the only secret society that would come into being from the Rothschild family and the Illuminati. In 1888, Lord Nathan Rothschild had united with Cecil John Rhodes to create the Society of the Elect, an organization that sought to bring all mankind under the rule of a synarchy, i.e., an elite group of bankers, businessmen, and industrialists who would meet in secret to chart global events. Like the Illuminati, the Society of the Elect has its roots in Freemasonry. The founding members of this secret society included Lord Reginald Balliol Brett, Queen Victoria's closest advisor, Lord Archibald Primrose, the 5th Earl of Rosebery, and Rothschild's son-in-law, who would serve as Britain's Prime Minister from 1894 to 1895, and Arthur James Balfour, 1st Earl of Balfour, who would become the British Prime Minister from 1902 to 1905. Rhodes's ties to these three men would become tightened by their shared homosexuality and their preference for burly, blue-eyed boys. Among the other recruits were Albert Lord Grey and Robert Armstrong Yates, two prominent members of the British Parliament, William Palmer, the 2nd Earl of Selborne, and Alfred Milner, Under-Secretary of Finance in Egypt. Common interests. The members of the Society of the Elect held much in common. They were personages of means who had been educated at Oxford or Cambridge. They were Masons. Most members of the Apollo chapter, even Manning, had been a lodge member prior to receiving holy orders. They were imperialists, who had been influenced by the thought of John Ruskin and his belief that the world must be reshaped into an aesthetically pleasing whole. They were social Darwinists, who believed that the British people, by the process of natural selection, had evolved into the master race. With the exception of Stead, they held positions of political power that would impact the course of British affairs, and they all had cultivated strong ties to the Rothschild family. Rhodes had secured Rothschild funding to purchase all the diamond mines in South Africa and thereby create the De Beers Consolidated Mining Company. Of equal importance was their interest in the occult. Rhodes and Rothschild shared an interest in the Jewish Kabbalah, a mystical interpretation of Scripture based on the concealed meaning in its letters and words, and the mystery religions that flourished at the time of Christ. This interest resulted in Rhodes's belief in pre-existence and reincarnation. Arthur Balfour established the Society for Psychical Research in 1882 and the Synthetic Society in 1890. Both groups espoused the doctrine that departed spirits can communicate great truths. These revelations from the grave, they maintained, would be used to form the basis of a one-world religion. A visit from Alphonse. In July of 1892, Baron de Rothschild visited John Dee in New York. The two moguls cut a deal. Rockefeller would retain his monopoly over the oil industry in the United States and the lion's share of the European market, while the Rothschilds would control the Asian oil industry. The meeting was of crucial importance to the Rothschilds, who sought to use Rockefeller and Standard Oil to regain their footing on American soil. The Rothschild Agent. Jacob Schiff was dispatched by the Rothschilds to serve as John Dee's financial advisor. He had been born and raised at 148 Judengasse, Frankfurt, a residence that the Schiffs shared with the Rothschilds. In 1865, he arrived in America to further the Rothschilds' interests. Schiff brought such a large amount of Rothschild capital to the financial firm of Kuhn-Loeb that the firm was able to expand tenfold within a matter of months. After becoming a full-fledged partner in Kuhn-Loeb, he married Loeb's daughter. Schiff's place in American history has often been underestimated. Few historians take note that Schiff was the Rothschild family's representative in New York. Through his efforts, the banking firm of Kuhn-Loeb became inextricably bound to the House of Rothschild. He became the founding father of the Hebrew Free Loan Society, which provided interest-free loans to Jewish immigrants, and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. He also served with Paul Warburg, his brother-in-law and fellow Rothschild operative, to set the stage for the creation of the Federal Reserve System. Under Schiff's guidance, John Dee gobbled up shares in prominent New York banks, including National City Bank, First National, and Bankers Trust. With Schiff as a partner, Rockefeller acquired the Equitable Trust Company that would become the 8th largest bank in the country. Equitable Trust would eventually merge with the Chase Bank to become Chase Manhattan, a bank with strong ties to the House of Rothschild and the Bank of England. Another Rothschild lackey. Rockefeller also purchased massive issues of stock in the Erie, the Southern Pacific, the Union Pacific, and the Pennsylvania Railroad. These interests brought Rockefeller into a close relationship with John Pierpont, J.P. Morgan, who controlled more than 5,000 miles of railroad track in America. Morgan granted preferential shipping rates to Rockefeller on his railroads, and Rockefeller, in exchange, purchased a major stake in Morgan's New York Central. J.P. Morgan, like Schiff, was a Rothschild agent. In 1854, the Morgan Bank had been established in London by two American financiers, George Peabody and Junius Morgan. The Rothschilds developed a close relationship with Peabody and Morgan, and following a financial crash in 1857, they saved the Morgan Bank by organizing a bailout from the Bank of England. The Morgan Bank, with unlimited funding from the Rothschilds, became the driving force behind Western expansion in the United States. It financed and controlled westbound railroads through voting trusts. In 1888, William Rockefeller, John Dee's younger brother, joined with Morgan in establishing the Jekyll Island Club, a posh resort for millionaires off the coast of Georgia. The island, which boasted such walkways as Morgan's Road and the Rockefeller Path, became the site where the plans for the Federal Reserve System were drafted. Interlocking interests. In 1900, when Morgan bought Carnegie Steel for $480 million, the highest price ever paid for a business at the time, Rockefeller invested heavily in the new company dubbed U.S. Steel. By 1904, the financial holdings of Rockefeller and Morgan had become so intertwined that John Moody, founder of Moody's Investment Services and America's leading economic analyst, said that it was impossible to separate the interests of Rockefeller from the interests of Morgan. Although they bristled in each other's company, the alliance was inevitable, since their financial empires remained grounded in the House of Rothschild. A cartel consisting of Rockefeller, Carnegie, Morgan, Schiff, and Rothschild came into being. In time, this cartel would come to control not only the world's economy, but also its systems of education, politics, medicine, and religion. The planet was doomed.